Racing to the 2023 Kentucky Derby, and this time let's get a Derby update for Saturday, April 22nd. We're going to take a look at pace figures today, both Brisnet and Timeform. Take a look at the fastest early paced races on the trail, and then also some of the slowest, and see which horses might have benefited on the big board. We'll do some pace analysis, quickly recap what the difference between a pace figure is and a speed figure is, and look at the Brisnet pace and Timeform pace. Let's get to it for us Saturday. First off, on the track today, a light day on the workouts. Disarm galloping over the Churchill surface. Of course, he is pointing to the Kentucky Derby for trainer Steve Asmussen after running third in the Lexington Stakes. No defections the entire week for the Derby and the Oaks. We did get Sun Thunder confirmed. It looks like Blazing Sevens is going to go. So 26 horses still pointing for the Derby, 19 for the Oaks when you include the also eligibles. Now today we're going to talk about pace figures, but last weekend you might want to watch that video. We talked about the top speed figures, and there is kind of a difference. Now a speed figure is an attempt to rate the race numerically by having one number for the final time of the race. Now, it is accounted for in the distance of the race and the track surface, and some other speed figures will account for a little bit of pace or a wide trip. But the pace does influence the final figure, and I think you have to keep that in mind. Remember the story about the tortoise and the hare. The tortoise is slow and steady. The hare is obviously quicker, but the tortoise ends up winning the race because the hare did not take advantage of that early pace. And that is the difference in a pace figure and a speed figure. If they go fast early, they're probably going to go slow late. If they go slow early, they're going to go fast late. But if you run way slow early, there's no way you can run fast late. So that's just how it works out, and that's why sometimes the pace figures give you an overall feel for the race versus the speed figure is just a number that comes about after the race, and it doesn't adjust for the pace of the race unless it's a speed figure maker that does do that. Now, pace analysis, what you're trying to do here is account for the pace at 4 furlongs and 6 furlongs in a 1 mile race or longer or 2-turn race. And if you're fast early, you're going to be slow late. If you're slow early, you're going to be fast late. Now, we're going to do another video later on this week on running style, and that's where you fit in the race, like if you're going to be sitting on the lead or in the back of the pack. But that's different than pace, because if you're a closer and the pace is slow, that's where you want to be, but you're not going to run well. And again, if you're a front runner and the pace is fast, you may not run as well either. So running style is different than pace analysis. Now, pace figures we're going to look at is Beyer and Brisnet and Timeform. Beyer does include some pace figures in the formulator, and they also include pace figures on the 6 furlong distance. Now, Brisnet will do a first call and a second call pace figure for route races, and TimeformUS does factor in pace into their final Timeform ratings, but they also have pace figures, and then they will denote them color-coded if they're a fast pace or a slow pace. So one of the things I want to show you with Brisnet, a lot of handicappers don't take a look at this, but the late pace rating is the late pace of the race, and they put that in a numerical rating. And this is where it's located, where the gold arrow is. And then you have a second call and first call pace. And I'm highlighting the second call because in a route race, a mile or longer, that's what we're going to take a look at for most of these Kentucky Derby prep races. But sometimes you do want to take a look at those for both the first call and the second call, because there can be a dramatic difference. So that's what we're going to be talking about in this video. Now, for Brisnet, anytime you see a late pace over 103, that is very good, and it is above average effort. Whenever you see a second call pace, a plus number means that it's a fast pace, and a negative number means that it's a slow pace. So if you see a -5, that means it was -5 on the slower side. If you see a 3 or a 4 or a 7, a positive number, that means it was fast pace. And fast paces are usually going to benefit the closers or horses that come just a little bit off the pace. Now, if it's a fast pace and there's a lone speed, a lot of times they can win as well. So for the late pace runners on the Derby Trail this year, the fastest late pace runner, according to Brisnet, is Kingsbarns with a 109 in the Louisiana Derby. That pace was slow early, so he went fast late. Angel of Empire had a slow early pace. He went fast late in the Arkansas Derby. Practical Move with a 107. Skinner with a 107. He's not actually in the Derby yet. And then Forte had a 106 late pace rating in the Fountain of Youth. 2 fills with a 106 in the Jeff Ruby. Now, the second call pace, the fastest speed figures were Angel of Empire in the Risen Star. That had the fastest second call pace figure of a plus 21. The Keeneland Futurity last fall had a plus 13. Forte and Loggins really battled on the front end. That had a fast second call speed figure. And then we've had a lot of slower pace second call. We did not have a lot of fast fractions on the Derby Trail this year. Confidence Game in the Rebel took advantage of that. Practical Move in the Los Angeles Futurity, and then Forte. So one thing I would say about this year's trail is not a lot of speed, and the horses who set the pace in those races, they are not making the Derby field. So we're going to have new horses potentially on the lead in the Derby that never set the lead in any of the prep races. As a general rule, closers win these fast-paced races. So the 2 fastest pace races on the trail, the Risen Star and the Keeneland Futurity, both of those were won by closers. Now, the slowest ones were Kingsbarn, a minus 16 in the Louisiana Derby, Rocket Can with a minus 13 in the Holy Bull, Tapit Trice with a minus 11 in the Gulfstream Park Allowance, and then Forte also getting in there. So the key thing you have to remember is that early speed usually wins slow-paced races, and Kingsbarns went wire to wire. Rocket Can came from just off the pace in the Holy Bull while going 4 wide. And then Tapit Trice, that was an impressive effort. He ran against the grain of the race that day. He came from off the pace while going wide in a slow-paced race. So that means you want to upgrade Tapit Trice's effort in that Gulfstream Park Allowance. And then he came back to win the Tampa Bay Derby and the Bluegrass. So for Timeform, they calculate pace at the half mile and 6 furlongs in 1 mile plus races. They do make pace adjustments for every now and then if it's a surface that favored front runners or a surface that favored closers. But what I like about Timeform is they've been doing this for 2-3 years now, so you can take a look over the years and see what numbers mean a fast pace or a slow pace. So the fastest paces for Timeform is the Withers. They had that as a 137 for the second call. Now, what's interesting, that race was not ranked very fast for Brisnet. So we have a little bit of a disagreement. And some of the best handicapping is done when you can determine which speed figure or pace figure is more accurate. Now, the Rebel, they had as a 129. That was the Brisnet's 3rd fastest race. The Florida Derby, they had as a fast race, 3rd. In Brisnet, and then Risen Star they had as a fast, which was a 1st. So they had the same races, but in a different order, and Brisnet had the Risen Star as the fastest pace. Meanwhile, they had the Withers as the fastest of all the paces for 6 furlongs, and Brisnet did not even there. So there could be a potential overlay if you're leaning towards the Timeform number with Hit Show. Hit Show may have ran a better race and came from off the pace that day. Now, the slowest pace races, again, an agreement between the Louisiana Derby. It was dramatically slow on the Timeform scale, the slowest pace figure of the last 2 years on the trail, an 80. And them and Brisnet are in agreement. They have the Holy Bulls a little bit slower than par, and the Sunland Derby, and they were not ranked as slow-paced races for 6 furlongs by Brisnet. So again, there was not a lot of fast paces on the trail this year. So overall, when you put the speed and pace faces together, you've got the Beyer scale showing 2 fills and Practical Move as your fastest speed figure horses. And then Brisnet has 2 fills and Forte as your fastest speed figures. And then Timeform has Practical Move and 2 fills as your fastest speed figures. But then when you go for the pace upgrades, you may want to take a look at Brisnet, saying that 2 fills has a good pace upgrade with his late pace, Forte in the Fountain of Youth, Tapit Trice in his Gulfstream Park allowance. And then if you want to look at Timeform potential horses on the pace upgrades, you've got Practical Move, 2 fills, and Hit Show. So a combination, a couple of those horses are in there twice. 2 fills and Practical Move come up high in both speed figure and pace figure on the different pace and speed analysis. Post positions will be drawn on May 1st. The Derby 20 horses, 14 horses for the Oaks. Derby and Oaks coming up on May 5th and May 6th. We've got some videos coming up. We've had Confidence Game on Thursday, top speed figures last week. Make sure to watch that. We'll put that in the trailer here. We've got a couple of live streams scheduled. Kentucky Derby live handicapping show with the Derby Bandit on Thursday, May 4th, and then a pedigree show Friday, April the 28th with Jessica Tugwell. We're going to go over the Derby pedigrees and how to take a look at pedigree analysis with Jessica from Hawkstone Bloodstock. That'll be Friday, April 28th, 7 o'clock Central. If you can't catch the live streams, you can watch the replays, all part of the trail. Don't forget to subscribe to the Thoroughbred Prospectus. Comes out every Monday, 2,000 words all the way through the Belmont Stakes. We look at rankings, trip notes, up-and-coming maiden winners, and other kind of statistical things along the trail. Subscribe in the description below. And we've got more videos going to come up. We're going to be doing a running style video, a top 10 video, also an Oaks video as we get you ready for the 2023. Remember, D. Wayne Lucas always says, people have opinions, horses have the facts. Let's see what shakes out on Derby Day 2023.